Hello, this is going to be a tutorial on how to build a room with ProBuilder. It'll be similar to my last video on the same subject, except this time the audio probably won't cut out halfway through. No promises though. Anyways, I'm going to get started by opening up the ProBuilder window and docking it over here to the left. If yours doesn't look like this, you're probably using the icon mode. So you can swap between these two by just right-clicking in the window somewhere and selecting which mode you'd like to be in. Same for docked versus undocked. I like it docked. So I'll use the Control K shortcut, that's Command K on a Mac, to create a cube and zero that off in the transform. So just selecting the object up in the transform, changing the positions to 0, 0, 0. And in face mode, gonna move these faces out, I don't know, about 10 meters or so. So I'm holding the control key to snap to the meter increment and building out a cube that generally looks like the size of what I might expect a room to look like. So I'm using the guides here on the texture, so 1 meter. You could also look at the object size in the PB Object Inspector to gauge size of an object, or use this handy tool over here called the Dimensions Overlay that shows you in real time what the size of the object is. So as I move that around, you'll see it drops from 895. You know, you can read. Anyways, so I'm going to add some variation to this room by creating some edge loops and moving faces around. So that'll be select an edge, down here hit insert edge loop, and then holding the control key again, just moving that edge over there. I find it's faster to use the shortcut Alt R, which selects edge rings, and Alt E, which connects edges. I just think that's faster to do. Then going all the way over here and using insert edge loop. Anyways, so I've got some variation there. I'll swap back into face mode, hold control while moving that edge, face out, and generally make this a little more interesting than just a single cube. Yeah, it's a pretty good looking room right there. So now I'm going to create another cube which will represent my other room. So I'm swapping into object mode here, holding the V key to use the vertex snapping feature of Unity. I'm going to snap to the bottom right vert here and drag it on up to match this vertex on this object. So what that did is just move that object up to be on an equal plane with this pre-built face here. I'm going to move that about 1 meter off and then follow the same procedure. Switching to face mode, this little icon up here, grabbing a face, holding control key, moving faces around. Maybe this is a hallway. I think 3 meters is a good size for a hallway. I'll select this face here, and instead of using the the meter snapping with control, I'm going to use vertex snapping. So holding the V key, select the y-axis, and then hover my mouse over one of these vertices up here. So what that did is it moved my transform handle to match the height of this axis here, matching what I was hovering on my mouse. If that didn't make sense, I didn't do a great job of explaining it. We'll do it again quite a bit in the next couple of minutes, so hopefully you'll follow along. If you don't, feel free to come by the forums. I'll try to explain it better. I'm not so good with the words, but I'll try. So now I'm doing something new. I used the shift shortcut while grabbing a face and moving. So if I go back, I grabbed this edge here, held shift, which is the shortcut for extrude. So again, select a face, holding the shift key, grab the z-axis. I now let go of the shift key and hold on to the control key, which engages snapping. So that's pretty good. It's a plausible room layout, I suppose. Next step, I'd like this to be an interior scene. So I'm going to select these faces, all of them, by double clicking. You could also, with select hidden off, swap that to on, so we can select faces that are hidden from us. So when I say hidden, I mean these guys back here that we can't see from this camera angle. Just drag select the whole object, or double click. The ends are the same. Anyways, I can use the flip face normals tool, which just swaps the direction the faces are pointing. So flip those inside so that we have what looks like a plausible interior, and do the same over here. Okay, so there's some lighting problems here. There's a couple ways to address that, one of which is to use backlighting, which seems to avoid that issue. Or I find in some cases just taking the bias and normal bias down to almost nothing or nothing seems to do an okay job. So for now we'll do that. There's also, just as a point of note, this new generate shadow object tool up here that will create a new shell, if you will, around the object that is invisible to the camera but exists to cast shadows, so you can have properly behaving light volumes around. So if you're not wanting to mess with your bias or normal bias, that's another option to look into. Oops. Saw some alt drag action there. That's a very neat tool if you're interested. Okay, so next order of business is how about a door? Otherwise these two rooms just kind of exist in a vacuum, right? So I'll select this object. I'm going to start with this room here. Using the edge tool again, I'm going to use the shortcut Alt-R, Alt-E, which again is just a fancy way of doing an edge loop. And I'm going to straighten that edge loop out by switching to the scale tool and holding Control while dragging out on the axis so they all line up nice and even. That's not really necessary, but I like to do it. I think it looks cleaner. And do the same thing over here. Alt-R, Alt-E, and then snap that on over. So now I want to move this edge ring, edge loop, over to match, so probably about a meter and a half away from this one. So I can either double click to select the edge loop, or I can use the menu item over here, select edge loop, and move that over. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. Good enough. So now instead of inserting an edge loop here, I just want to connect two edges. So I'm going to select this edge and hit Alt-E, which again is just connect edges, and move that up to about a height that I think a human could walk through. That's pretty good. So now if you're coming from other 3D modeling programs, you may notice that that created some n-gons that are not really visible but are secretly there. So if I turn on shading with wireframe, you'll notice that ProBuilder is taking care of triangulating that for us. In most cases, it's safe to let ProBuilder deal with that. But if you wanted to clean that up, it's pretty easy to select that vertex, grab one across, and connect the edges. So connect edges works just like it does in edge mode. When you're in vertex mode, it just creates an edge between those two vertices. But I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, so I need to create a door on the other side of this as well. So following the same procedure, select that edge, grab the edge ring, create an edge loop. So now there's a problem. How do I match up this ring with this one over here? Well, I could eyeball it, but that's not great. there's a better way to do that. If I switch into edge mode, select the edge loop, so again double click or select edge loop, I can use the vertex snapping handle shortcut to match that up perfectly. So if I grab just on the x-axis there, hold V while dragging, and hover over a vertex on this edge loop over here, I can snap right to it. So I'll do this one first, create another edge loop over here, again holding V, and there we go. So matched up exactly. I'll do the same thing with the top of the door frame. Select those two edges, Alt-E to connect edges, and then position my camera so I can see this edge over here. Start dragging on the y-axis, hold V, and then hover my mouse over this vertex here. Okay, so now I will turning off hidden selection. So if you were watching, you saw as I clicked there to select that door, it actually selected this face here that was invisible to the camera but still there. So that's what select hidden does. I find it's generally more helpful off, especially when working in volumes like this where there are normals flipped inside out. So now I'm going to position the camera again to where I can see this edge over here. With this face still selected, I'm going to hold Shift, drag, let go of Shift, and then hold V to snap to this vertex over here. So since it's not selected, you don't see it, but it's there. So that was the shortcut for extrude with select. So just taking a face, holding Shift, dragging through, then the V key to snap. Now I can delete these faces, get both sides of the door, and there you have it. So I'll move a little bit quicker if I wanted to do a window. The procedure is the same. I'm not going to insert edge loops this time. I'll just connect edges. So connect that edge, connect another edge, move that over to where I'm going to make a wide window, connect edges. So again, Alt-E is the shortcut for that. Moving that down, that's good. Select this edge, select this bottom edge, connect, and then move my camera over to where I can see the opposite wall. I'll select it to make it a little easier to see. So I'm holding Control and selecting both objects here. Select that edge, hold V, hover over a vertex on this edge loop. And do the same thing for the top and bottom. So I'm selecting the object, moving my camera so I can see the other side, holding V, and then hovering over a vertex. And so this time I'll extrude from this window. So holding Shift, drag the Z-axis, hold V, hover over a vertex on this wall, and then delete these faces. Alright, cool. So if you're using ProBuilder Basic, I'm going to texture this next. So some of this will not apply to you, but feel free to watch. Otherwise, good luck. We'll see you later. Anyways, I'll open up, probably not the UV editor yet. Let's just select all these faces. So a quick way to do that is to swap into isographic mode. Come at it from one of these axes here, so either the Z or the X, doesn't really matter. turn select hidden on, and then make sure that rect is set to intersect. So what that does, if I come back into perspective mode here, the default mode when selecting faces is to require that the entire face be encompassed by the drag selection rect. So when I'm saying drag selection rect, I mean this box here from where I drag the mouse. You can now change that to be just intersection, so any face that touches that will be selected. So that's handy in a lot of situations. In this case, I want to select all the walls and none of the ceilings or floors. So if I select both of my objects here and then just drag right through, I get all the walls and none of the ceilings. Well, I got this ceiling, and probably these ceilings over here. I suppose not ceilings, maybe window ledges, whatever. Anyways, open the UV editor up, and now the idea I want is I have a texture that tiles on the 0 to 1 x-axis. I'm going to scale this down to match the height. So I'm holding the control key while scaling and just dragging these UVs around. And I'm just going to eyeball it. I don't necessarily need this to be exact. If I hold Alt while click dragging the transform gizmo here, I can change where that is anchored. And I'm going to move that on over to just about there. Looks like the door frame didn't match up very well with the walls. That's okay. I'll address those in a minute. So now I want to apply a material to these walls. I'm going to select this again, grab just the walls, and open up the material editor. And so I've already added my materials. To add materials to the material editor, just drag them on over and apply. So there we go. That came in pretty well. To get that door frame matching up, I'll open the UV editor back up and use the auto stitch feature. So I'll select a face adjacent to the one I want to auto stitch and then hold Control and click. And so what that did is take this face and aligned it right to this one, or rather vice versa. And do the same over here. Okay, so, and the top face there. So I could do that over here as well, but in this case it doesn't look great. So I think what I'm going to do is just manually UV project these. So selecting those bridging faces, convert them to manual. I'll use a box projection, which comes in pretty well in most cases. Move them all to somewhat on top of each other, or close to it at least. And then scale it down to where it will fit mostly on, I think the red texture will be good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Not the best for this tutorial, I think it'll be fine. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the floors. So the way I do that, one way of doing that, if I turn select hidden back to off, is using the grow by selection tool. So over here, you can either just grow, so grab every face that touches whatever your selection is touching, or you can restrict it to angle. So in this case, I've got my angle set to 42, and it only selects, as you can see, faces touching your selection that are not beyond the angle. And you can make that either iterative or just flood select. So I'm going to flood select and do the same over here. Now open the UV editor up, and this is a good candidate for a texture group. And so what that does is just make sure that these UVs will be projected together and stay aligned when you move them around in the future. So this works well with faces that are planar. It does not work very well with faces that have a lot of movement in them. So like this wall where it has a angle here and an angle here would not be a very good candidate for a texture group. Okay, so I'll apply that. So you see if I just select this face here, I now have a texture group indicator, meaning these will all be moved together whenever I'm moving faces around. It doesn't really matter where they are in the UV space because we'll be using a tiling texture. And over here, same thing. I'll see if I can get that at least somewhat aligned. That's pretty good, I'll take that. And then follow the same process for the ceiling. So I'm using the Alt-G shortcut for grow selection and group selected faces. Okay, so now I can use the material editor to apply these materials. So I've got a floor texture prepared and a ceiling texture. So there you have it. If you have any questions, feel free to drop by the forums. Either I or Gabriel will be there to help. Comments, complaints, feel free to direct them, preferably on the forums. If you want to use YouTube, that's fine. I warn you, I don't check YouTube comments very often. So if I'm not responding, please head on over to the procore3d.com/forums and ask there. All right, cool. Good luck with your projects, everyone.